And now presenting the Save State, V Rising, out of early access.
And into our hearts.
I'm sorry, that one got me a little. Oh, no. Okay, clap on one. We're good.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Speaking
Yay.
of claps, you may have it picked up every once in a while, but I've got some nasty thunderstorms rolling through right now.
Oh, really? This early in the morning? Or, I mean, this late in the morning?
Yes. How dare they come through at this time?
I don't know. I just feel like usually you don't get thunderstorms like at 10, 11 a.m. Usually they stop by that point.
It's odd. I mean, it's hard to see because I've got the window down just for the reflection, glare issues, but it's like black outside right now.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. It's just coming off the lake.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen the sunset in a few days at this point, so.
Yeah, how is that going there? Like the forever day cycle that you're entering?
I got some blackout curtains.
Yeah.
It's not really forever. It's down for like 2-3 hours, like, midnight to like 3 a.m. thereabouts.
But does it get like middle of the night dark, or is it just get like kind of late evening dark and then it starts to become like early dawn light again?
It gets, like, if you can imagine, like, a normal evening compressed into 3 hours, that's what it is. So you do have, like, you'll have, like an hour of pitch black darkness, maybe.
Okay.
But mostly it's, like, yeah. I mean, by next month, it'll be, like, you'll just have, like, an hour of that kind of twilight for a bit, and then it'll get back to, the sun will come right back up. Yeah. Actually, it's a month almost exactly till the solstice, so.
That it is.
Actually, that's a pretty good segue. I know we normally bullshit, but who wouldn't do very well in Sweden in the summer? Be a vampire.
Yeah. Ooh.
Welcome to the Save State podcast where we talk about video games. Yes. Today we're talking about V Rising, a game where you are painfully aware of when the sun is and is not rising because you're a vampire. And it's been out for a while, but it finally came out of early access, which meant we can talk about it legally.
Yep. Yep. Unlike another survival craft game that starts with a V that is still in early access that I'm very excited to talk about when it ever comes out of early access.
Vinecraft.
That's
the
it.
Tarzan-based survival.
You got it.
Crafting game. Yeah, no, so this one's, I don't know, this was a lot different than I was expecting it, because it's very much an action RPG.
Mm-hmm.
So when I kind of loaded it up, recently I've been playing Hades because I've been watching people play Hades 2, but I can't bring myself to get Hades 2 until it's out of early access. So I've been playing Hades. So then going into V Rising, I was expecting the combat to be like Hades, and it's not, although it's similar. But also there's crafting and base building. It's interesting. Like, I don't know that I would have thought of these. Like, nothing. This game doesn't necessarily do anything that I think is like way different than any other game I've played, but it mashes together a bunch of stuff that I wouldn't necessarily have expected to put together.
Yeah, it does a good job of kind of recapturing somewhere between Diablo 2 and Diablo 3's ARPG combat mechanics. Like, there's a good flow to it. You gain skills at a good rate. The way you can kind of kit yourself out into different styles is really nice. I was just thrown for a loop in the beginning because I was expecting like standard level progression. So I was farming, and it took me a while to realize like I'm not leveling up. Like it's more of World of Warcraft in like your gear score is more important at end game than your level, obviously. But this is just all that end game idea of like, well, it's gear score. And killing these special bosses and monsters that will unlock either new crafting for you or new skills or some shape change abilities. it's really fun. I don't have the tolerance to be on a PvP server, but I could see the appeal for a PvP server on this.
Yeah, like I also didn't play PvP, but I could see it. But at the same time, like this game doesn't. I played almost all the way through Act One, and I don't know that I ever felt like I needed more players in the game. I never felt lonely. Like I felt like I had a pretty good, I don't know, game
Enough of
what's
a
the word I'm looking
challenge.
for? Yeah, not just a challenge, but like there was enough of a
A gameplay loop.
gameplay loop. Thank you.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's got a really
it's
satisfying
early for
gameplay
me.
loop where you have to go out, you kill a boss, you gather resources, go back, build a thing.
Yep. Wait for your 8 sawmills to finish making those 8 planks of lumber at about the same time that you need for the next thing you're doing. Because you're a fucking fool if you do 1 sawmill.
I still only have one sawmill, although I
You
do have
are a
multiple
madman.
grinders.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I don't know why I was like I need more grinders, but I never thought to build more sawmills. I don't know why my brain thought that way. Um, good point. um, yeah, so all progression in this game is based off of like defeating bosses. So every time you defeat a boss, you unlock patterns to build things, spell slots, equipment that you can build. Then you go back to your base, your castle, which you slowly build up, and you make those things. Part of that's also building to the base, and some of that's building to the gear. And with better gear, you can beat bigger bosses. So like everything kind of feeds into this cycle. Really gameplay loop. Really like it feels satisfying, where you're.
God, my brain really thought you were going to say satisfactory there.
My brain wanted to, and I was fighting it. I was fighting it. So like you never really feel like you're doing wasted stuff, but at the same time, there's never any impetus to like grind, except for maybe sometimes with materials, like oh, I need 4 topazes, or I need to go out and find some more gems or whatever. And at one point, I was just like, oh, I'm going to need a bunch of copper. So I just emptied my bags and went to a copper mine and did all that. But I did that once, and I haven't needed copper like at all, like since then. That was very early in the game. So you can grind this game, but there's no like real. It doesn't feel needed. It feels like the game wants you to like, okay, night has fallen. It's time to go kill a boss, and then whatever materials you pick up in that process often are enough to like get you over the next hump for what you need to make. And then the same thing with like basic materials like stone and wood. Oftentimes I found that I got enough of those materials just by expanding my castle. So like I would have to knock down some trees and stone in order to make my castle bigger, and then I would use that to build the castle itself.
Yep.
So
Yeah, well, and going back to hunting down those bosses, I like the mechanic they have for this. There's this device that will allow you to kind of pick your next target, and it won't show you outright where they are, but it just has this nice little kind of compass overlay, like in a very gamified, like these soul strands, guiding you towards this location, almost Elden Ring like. Very non-intrusive, but it gives you like, okay, well, it's around this way, and you get to kind of go out and explore the map a little bit more. And I really enjoyed that process, and I enjoyed it even more so because of the day-night cycle. They really emphasize more than a lot of more modern vampire games have that the sun will fuck your shit up.
oh yeah.
Uh, I died so many times the first time around that I played, not realizing like the sun was that deadly and dangerous. And I'd see like the rays coming down, and I'd be like, oh, let me see how long I can like actually resist. And you just immediately melt. You're done. Like,
Yeah, it is fun though. Like when you've gone somewhere, you killed a boss, you got a bag full of loot, you have to make it all the way, because that's the other thing is like some loot you can't, because there's like teleporters, like fast travel points around the map, so you don't like spend your entire game running around. But if some loot can't be teleported, which I mean some of it's very arbitrary what can and cannot be teleported, at least from my eyes, but at the same time, like it creates this thing where you're like, I have to run back before like the sun comes up. And then you're so like the sun will come up and you're like jumping between shadows and trying to hide under trees
And then
um,
noon hits and there's like almost no shadows.
yeah. Thankfully, one of the first things like upgrades you get is like wolf form, which lets you run fast. That is one thing I found very frustrating about this game is like, well, the only thing I really found for frustrating about the game is just everything seems the movement feels way too slow.
Mm.
Even in combat, I'm like, I just want to be moving 20% faster the whole time.
Yeah.
Like there are some you can get like potions that increase your spell your movement speed, and you can also like different people because you always have to like drink blood. Like if you can imagine the food bar in Minecraft, but replace that with like blood. That's kind of how V Rising works.
Mm-hmm.
But like depending on what kind of blood you have in your system, gives you different buffs and how pure that blood is. So like if you suck like the blood off of like a crafter, like a miner who's only got like a 4% thing, you're going to get very crappy versions of those low buffs. You might not get anything at all in all likelihood.
Yeah, you'll get a modified blood type that kind of changes your, not your loadout, but like just tweaks your skills, your scores in very subtle ways.
I mean, from what I could tell, it was just a buff. Like it was just percentages
Right.
across
Yep.
certain things.
And then the quality of that blood, like you said, yeah, that is
Yeah.
what's going to really change it to the point where you want to, at later stages, get one of those people to be just your blood farm.
Yeah, like I didn't get to a point where I could do that. I mean, I got to the point where I had servants, but I didn't get around to building the chair so I could order them around.
Uh-huh.
So, because it wanted a lot of stuff I didn't have, and
Fair.
also I was busy building my castle, which was more fun than I was expecting it
Yeah.
to be. No, I mean it's a lot of fun. Like I didn't get enough of a way through it. Like I think I said, I only got really to the first act, and obviously there's a lot more to the game, and I want to play more. I will say early on, I got very frustrated, like when we first finished the tutorial, because the tutorial is just teaching you the controls and stuff, and everything's like very easy, you know. And the pacing slows down a ton when you get out of the tutorial because everything suddenly has way more health and things can actually kill you and all that stuff. So there's more danger, but at the same time, I felt like I was like crawling along with some of the early fights. And then it tells you like there's certain spots on the map where you can build castles. Like they're not like you can't just build it anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to have certain designated areas. But there's enough of them in very different sizes that it doesn't feel restrictive really. But every time I would find one, like near where I started early on, there was like a enemy in there that was a skull level, which was I guess it's like 20 levels above you in item level. It took me forever to find one that didn't have something in there, and I died a couple times just because I would go in there and there was like a stone golem or like a man trap or whatever that was like way above, and I was like level
fuck those man
6
traps.
or whatever. Yeah, and so it was. I thought I was doing something wrong initially because I'm like, well, shouldn't the starting areas, like the areas near the starting area, have the easiest starting points? But I think it's just randomized.
You also get a choice when you leave that first little tutorial zone to go to the west and the east. My first playthrough back in the day went to the east, and apparently that is one of the more difficult regions that you can go to. They recommend going to the west, and really more and more people recommend like don't build a base in those starting regions, like work your way towards more of the middle so that you have like, even with the fast travel points being there, just having access equally to each region is nicer. I didn't do that, but I could see how that could be beneficial.
No, I started in the west area, so I don't, I didn't start in the east. And also, like when it gives you the selection, it says like on your first playthrough, it doesn't matter where you start at. So I assumed that was they weren't lying to me, but that could also be like
felt like it did.
I don't know. How much did you play since 1.0 dropped?
I played about 12, 16 hours worth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I just wonder what differences there were between the actual final product and the early access product.
It feels like the sun was the thing I noticed the most because they were not forgiving with it in the early part. Early game, it was immediate damage starting to be taken. It was a slow tick of damage at first, and then it would just keep ramping up and ramping up. Instead of now, the sun tendrils kind of come down for a little bit to warn you that it's getting ready to intensify, and then it zaps you. I like this system more because that little slow leech of damage, trying to do that shadow to shadow dodge during the day was just impossible because eventually you just kind of bled out, basically.
Yeah, one thing I would have liked, and again, this is probably just because I've been playing Hades recently, like the 8 second cooldown on the dash ability.
Yeah.
Would have liked that to be more like 4,
Yeah.
at
Really
least.
nice.
But I don't know. There's like modifiers you can get for spells later on, so maybe there's something that could make it so that that happens more often. But that is the other thing is like you have a huge like there's the spell book seems pretty big, and maybe I mean I've only as I said played about about a third of the game, so you end up with you have a spell book that has like a lot of different elements, and then each like element you end up with like 9 different spells. What I was kind of disappointed to learn is that they're basically the same like mechanic. It's just like the type of damage and like the debuff for each different school of magic changes the thing. So like you have like your Nova spell, your dash spell, your area of effect spell, and that mechanism works the same all the way through all the different spell books.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like the type of damage that changes. So at first I was like, wow, there's going to be a lot of different spells in this game. And like, oh, actually, it's, they're more like kind of like they're essentially the same spell.
Yeah.
Just like they work differently with other things. But, I like vampires. Vampires are fun. This game does like the gothy vibes pretty cool well. Like, like I've played a lot of vampire games. I don't know that I've ever played one that lets you kind of, I mean, maybe Skyrim, like from the vampire perspective, but like the kind of like, build your own castle. I guess I couldn't do that. Maybe Oblivion then.
I'm thinking more even Morrowind, where like you have the vampire clans and factions.
Yeah, but they didn't feel vampire-y. Like, I mean, as much as I love Morrowind, the vampires always felt like, what is that? Do you have a trunk on your face? Like, is this like, are you like a mosquito man? Like, they were a little too abstract. Like, I like a vampire that's got it's got some spires and gargoyles and shit going for it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really fun to kind of, imagine, like, this is where I will keep my coffin, and I better make sure that I have a crypt in the back and a graveyard next door so I can farm skeletons for bones and stuff like that.
Yeah, it really lets you like live the vampire fantasy out a lot better than like a Dawnguard or something did.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's like because like vampire fiction has gotten so like vampires in the 20th century or latter half of the 20th century are like they're very like I don't want to say deconstructionist, but like no one wants to just do regular vampires. Like there aren't a lot of Count Dracula stuff. Like it's a lot of Anne Rice stuff or Twilight or like vampires like Lost Boys, just kind of like vampires in different settings other than just big scary castles in the woods with bats.
Yeah.
And that was kind of fun to go back to that.
Yeah.
Even Castlevania kind of tries, but then it gets so abstract with like weird monsters and anime stuff and bizarre like not really vampire focused stuff. Like I think you can play a Castlevania game and never see a vampire drink blood. Like it isn't part of the thing.
That's a great point. I don't know. I really just miss a good Nosferatu. That's what I want.
Yeah.
And this came pretty close. It felt so rewarding in combat. Like, yeah, there was a certain point of the game where I wanted to be very particular with my blood type and quality. So I would be very hesitant to feed. But that early game, it's a smorgasbord. You just go through during fights, and as soon as that feed symbol is available, as long as you're not going to be taking a bunch of damage from all the other mobs around, it felt so fun to just like be fighting a bear and a wolf, and like the bear gets that feed symbol, and you jump on him, and you just drink that bear's blood up. So good. So rewarding. So fun. I wish I'd seen a little more of like when you're fighting humans in the game, more of like a fear reaction from them in those moments. Like I wish there had been more of like the ability to surprise them out from the shadows and have the others react in a non-aggressive way where they actually tried to run away at first, but
Yeah, some kind of like predator, feeling more like a predator in those
yes,
situations.
yes,
Would be cool.
like I'm a bigger danger than a nuisance.
Yeah, I mean, there's also just that like there's so much of this, at least the early game, where you're just like chopping down trees and stuff. Where it's like I don't know that my part of my vampire fantasy is like just smacking trees with a sword so I can build a palace. Like it does start off with like a lot of those kind of those things you need in a survival crafting game, but at the same time, like this feels very undignified for a vampire.
This is what thralls are for.
Exactly.
Yeah. But no, I mean, as far as survival craft games go, this is a fun one. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And I was like I was skeptical about the idea of like trying to do an ARPG like this, where and also still trying to like build castles and stuff like that. And it worked out a lot better than I was expecting. There were some weirdness, like the castles always ended up being way bigger than I would like imagine in any other survival crafting game. I would probably make much more compact areas, but because of the way the camera works, so like that isometric camera angle where you're constantly moving the camera by yourself because like it's not an automatic camera. I mean, I was playing on the controller, so you use the right stick to maneuver the direction of the player, and the camera you auto move the camera with a triangle button, which is
that would be
very N64.
Yeah, ooh, that sounds rough. I was yeah, like it's just the C buttons. Just hook up an N64 controller and it's probably a much better experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just pan with right click, like hold right click on a mouse.
Yeah.
Which made it feel fine. It got a little confusing because it's that I'm so used to isometric games being a fixed camera view that I would spin around and I'd have to like relook at the map because like it's like, wait, what fucking direction am I actually supposed to be heading in right now?
Yeah, exactly. Especially, I mean, like, I got used to like moving the camera in combat to like make things more visible for myself.
Yep.
But then when I would get back to my base, and then I would have the camera angle facing the wrong direction, I'd be like, "What is this? Everything's wrong."
Yeah, everything's
So
on
I'd
the
have to,
wrong
like,
side.
Yeah, I tried to have to like move the camera back to where it was when I first started building the base because that was the true camera angle at that time.
I don't know if it's a setting, but if they don't have it, they should add it for you to be able to like hit a button and lock the camera in a position. That would be nice.
Or like just have it locked to the same position every time you hit the go into build mode or something.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
That also took me a bit of finagling to get used to, and honestly, I think the thing that trained me most to like use this weird build system they have for this is actually like the Fallout 4
Oh, I can see
build
that.
thing.
Yeah.
Like it feels less like at most games where you have a building mechanic, except for Fallout 4, which is the only one I think that kind of does it similarly. Or I guess Fallout 76 and even Starfield use the same system more or less. But yeah, I don't know. The other thing I was kind of hoping this was going to be the case, but I know that they wouldn't do this. But when you went and hunted the bosses, which are called V Bloods, which is very weird to me to say. I don't. When you go and hunt them, I was kind of hoping that they would, like, I know they can't do this, but like the Nemesis system from the Shadows of Mordor games.
That would be so good.
Yeah, and then like have them try and hunt down your castle and stuff like that. I think that would, I mean, I guess that's what the PvP element's for, but I think that would have been so cool to like die against a boss and then like them like want to hunt you down or something like that.
Or even defeat a boss and like say it's one of the human bosses, like especially the human bosses have like descendants or relatives of theirs take up the cause to hunt you down. Like, so you're, like you said, you get raided
now too.
Or they've become a vampire and they're going to raid you. Yeah, that would be really fun to see. I could see someone throwing out a mod or something like that.
Yeah, because I think that the reason why no one's done that is because Warner Brothers is still very sure of themselves that they have a copyright on that. And I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably not true. I know they like to think that, but specific game mechanics are kind of hard to patent.
I mean, for a while there was someone, or I think it was EA, claimed that they had exclusive rights to like the idea of games and loading screens.
Yeah, it's that kind of shit. Like, I would not be surprised if one of these companies tried to patent the concept of platforming at some point. Like, but our platformer's so good, we deserve to have exclusivity over that mechanic. Like, nah. Like, this is a shared
Yeah.
creative space. Nemesis system is beautiful, and I want to see it in more games.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you have like movie studios that like have copyrighted like camera movements and stuff like that.
Exactly.
But yeah, this was a good game. This is totally a game I'm going to keep playing after we're done with this episode. Just a peek behind the curtain for listeners. We weren't planning on doing this one. We kind of had to do. We kind of had to do this one real quick. So I did. We neither of us had the normal amount of time to prep for this one as we normally do. So if it feels like
A shorter
we have
episode.
less to say,
Yes.
yeah, it's not intentional.
It's not. I would say, too, that don't be surprised if this game keeps coming back up in later episodes, because I, too,
Yeah,
want to
absolutely.
play through more and see where the end game really lies. I might even try some PvP server action at some point just to get an idea of it, or at least watch someone competent do it. That might even be fun.
Yeah, my only concern is like just the controls are just slightly too wonky for me to like I never felt in the combat like I was as confident as I am in Hades, or as like in Hades you feel like you're very vulnerable but you have a lot of tools at your disposal, versus Diablo where it feels like it doesn't matter if things hit you every once in a while, you can kind of keep going. And I feel like the combat, theorizing the combat, it feels like a weird mixture of the two, where like on one hand I feel as vulnerable as I do in Hades, but I don't feel like I have the tools available to me. I feel like my tool chest is more like a Diablo-y kind of limited thing. Anyway, but very very fun game. I've been looking at it for a while, wanting to play it. So
Yeah, and I grabbed it the week it came out onto early access because it looked so
Yeah.
fun. And yeah, I'm really happy with what they did with this. And I don't remember when it came out, but I don't feel like it was in early access as long as a lot of early access games.
no, I think it was probably maybe like 2 years only. I know it's only, but like I feel like it hasn't been that long, relatively speaking.
May 2022. So yeah, 2 years.
2
Almost
years, yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Also,
Good for them.
I don't think this is their only game I've played. They've made other stuff before this, but like they made like some free to play MOBA type
What,
stuff.
Stunlock Studios?
Yeah.
They're another Swedish developer. Wow.
Not only are they Swedish, but they're from Skövde, which is the same town that the developers of the other early access survival crafting game that starts with a V that is unreleased is from.
Oh,
Which is, it's not that big of a
Huh.
town.
interesting. How many
Yeah.
games we seem to play that come from Sweden.
Man, I'm not picking them.
No,
I did
no,
pick
no.
this one though, didn't I?
I mean, I don't care. That's funny. Well, definitely up there on my list of favorite vampire games, which hopefully that list gets expanded on this year with Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. They gotta rework that title.
Yeah. No, it's going to be White Wolf Presents
There it
Vampire:
is.
The Masquerade Bloodlines 2 The Quickening. Yeah, that's the thing, is like there actually, despite vampires feel like they show up in a lot of games, there aren't that many good vampire games. Like, I mean, aside from like the obvious ones, but like, I don't even consider Castlevania a vampire game, because even though there is vampires, it doesn't really feel like vampire-y,
No.
Like there's just, it'd been nice to see. I like vampires. I don't know. I read a lot of Anne Rice as a kid, so I'm down for all this stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Looking forward to the new vampire resurgence.
Looking forward to eventually playing Vampire with you.
Yeah, we gotta do that one too. Damn.
That's one I'd like to get on the short list here very
It's
soon.
been on the list forever.
I know.
Yeah.
We almost did it like 3 or 4 months ago, and then something else came
Yeah.
up.
I think we ended up doing a Marcus up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Marcus's little potato couldn't handle it.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully that's going to be changing soonish too. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So we're gonna take a quick break, then we'll get back with
Very
some
quick.
news.
Very quick.
And we're back.
And we are back.
Yeah. So news. This actually comes to us from a listener. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
This, more specifically, I mean, I was aware of this, but the new Assassin's Creed game has been announced.
Oh,
It'll
yeah.
be called Assassin's Creed Shadows. But the important part is, I called this shit. I called it. It's an Assassin's Creed game set in the late Sengoku period. You can play as a shinobi and a samurai again.
Mm-hmm.
I called that
Yes,
shit.
you did.
And I will bet money that the assassination of Oda Nobunaga is a important
That's gonna
part,
be
if
so
not a
good.
playable
Yeah.
part of this actual game.
That's going to be so good. I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, me too. The thing that has me worried is that to me, this has always been like the Assassin's Creed, like break glass in case of emergency kind of setting. Like this is their fallback, and
I don't know. I see it as long overdue. They've gone everywhere else.
Oh,
It
yeah,
almost
that
felt
too,
like they
too.
were snubbing it at this point.
No, it's yeah. I mean, in that sense, that's true too. It's like the NHL, like, oh yeah, we'll put a team in Seattle, and they've been saying that for 70 fucking years until they finally did. So like it kind of hopefully this goes well, but I do wonder like if this doesn't work, what else do they have? But they've said a lot of good song and dance about this. Like they've talked about how they're going. You can play it offline. There's not going to be a lot of microtransactions, yada yada. I don't know how much of that's actually going to be true, but it's a nice thought.
It depends on how soon we find the premium vendor in the game that sells you all the items that make everything else you find in the game pointless.
Yeah, and how much currency you get for logging in each week that you can use to buy the yeah, exactly. Although we'll see.
Look, Mirage
They've said that
Mirage
they're not
wasn't
gonna
bad. Like they really cut back on that one. I actually liked Mirage. I thought they did a good job with it. It felt like they were getting back to some basics.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of what they were going for. Certainly, what they sold the game as being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Do we have? We don't have a release date on that yet, do we?
November, I think.
Oh shit! Ooh, that's gonna be fun.
Let me double check.
I'm
that.
gonna be taking some
said,
breaks
yeah,
around
November
November,
15th.
December as the busy season starts to slow. So good.
Yeah, no, and I think that's also like the other thing about this is that because you get like the shinobi character and the samurai character, you're going to be able to like, because that's always been Assassin's Creed's like dichotomy. It's like you have the sword fighting kind of stuff, but then you have the stealth stuff, and how do you make those two mechanics work?
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, the sword fighting was like the oh shit, I'm in combat, I need to just do this for a bit kind of stuff. And then in the newer ones, it kind of felt like they switched to it being the other way around, where stealth was just kind of a perfunctory thing you did in between the combat sequences.
You can be a stealth character in those, but they really wanted to highlight their almost Souls-like combat, like a stamina and dodge system based combat. Which
I think if I was going to accuse them of cribbing off of anyone, it would probably The Witcher, just because like the way the combat works and like the stink meter when you're hunting clues and like the way the quests pop up and stuff like that.
The skills are more, if not exactly Witcher, they're more Witcher than they are Dark Souls in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More cinematic in that sense too. But yeah, I mean, not that I disliked those. They just were bloated.
It's different. It was a different game. That's not an Assassin's Creed game.
I mean, if that's I mean, they could have just called that
just an offshoot. They could have done a whole different spin-off.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know. Spin-offs are fine. You don't have to. I mean, that's, especially considering how little they seem to care about the actual like overarching Assassin's Creed plot for those three.
Mm-hmm.
Like they could have just had it. But then again, also like as soon as Ubisoft does any new IP, they get no one buys their, like I think that's their thinking about it. Cause like Immortals Phoenix Rising or whatever was just
Which I liked.
right, but no one played it because everyone's like, oh, you made the Breath of the Wild we have at home.
Yeah.
Like
It was Immortals Genshin Impact. Yeah. I didn't finish it. I liked it, but I didn't finish it.
I don't think anyone finished it. It felt, I don't know what about it felt cheap, and the marketing I think was a big part of it, but it felt like the thing that tricks grandma at the store. Like she goes like, oh, I know the kids liked that Sleeping Beauty movie or Shrek, and then she's in the checkout at Kmart and there's like Mogor the Ogre, and she's like, oh yeah, this is the thing that the kids were talking about. So I can weird vibe that one.
Mm-hmm. No,
the other thing I want to mention. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I like going back to like those newer Assassin's Creed games, like as a spinoff. You know what I'd like to see is get a little bold and give us the villain's perspective of the game. Like let us play as the bad guys. They
did that.
Which one did they let us play as the bad guys?
That one was God, I forgot what it was called. He plays the Irish guy. He wears all black.
Irish.
It's the one
it was Syndicate.
No, not Syndicate.
Wasn't that Syndicate when you're in London? You're not the bad guys, though.
But that's not it. No. It's the one that's set. It's like Rogue, I think. Is that what it's called?
Was it one of the main platform ones, or was it one of their offshoots for like Vita or something?
It came out on real consoles. It was like it came out like after 3, but before 4, I want to say.
Oh, I don't think I played it then. Oh yeah, wow. Came out for main consoles. I never played this one.
Yeah, so it is Rogue. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay.
Huh.
I mean, it kind of felt like DLC for Black Flag that maybe got a bit bloated, but
that might have been. I might have just been busy playing Black Flag still, and I was like, I'm good.
Yeah, it's
okay. All right, so they tried. Well, maybe give it another run. I feel like those newer games could have been done from the other side's perspective, and it would have, I don't know. They felt so different than a traditional Assassin's Creed game that it would have kind of made sense that you weren't playing an assassin. Yeah. Anyways.
But the other thing I want to bring our attention to, in a recent interview, this is not so much news as it is just a thing I read, with Jake Solomon, the director behind, he did XCOM 2 and he did the Midnight Suns. He left Firaxis right after the launch of Midnight Suns and started his own studio called Midsummer Studios, where they are building a Sims-style game, a life sim game. But he specifically mentioned that he's working on a robust like relationship simulation building mechanic. He kind of compares it to the Dwarf Fortress like universe builder thing that you have when you first build up. It was, it's like world builder, I guess.
When I made the mistake of saying like a lot of history and 500 years, and then I watched it build for like 45 minutes while I sipped a wine.
Exactly. He wants to do something like that with this. And he specifically mentioned Gilmore Girls as being the influence for his for the game, and I'm like, yeah, this is exactly what I want. Especially because like my favorite part of Midnight Suns was the hanging around with people.
Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to that. That's the thing everyone gets wrong about not just superhero comics, but specifically like a lot of Marvel comics, is like half of the fun is like them just hanging around and doing shit. Like it's not, they do so little of that in the movies.
Yeah, give me more like Degrassi.
Not that, but I mean, first of all, Spider-Man, half of Spider-Man is just fucking high school soap opera shit. But also, like, I don't know, like every 6 issues, the X-Men gotta play baseball and shit, and like Fantastic Four, they always have to have that scene where they get angry at each other over breakfast or whatever. Like it's part of the process. But yeah, there's like a ton of games coming out that are due to come out in the future that will be kind of going for the Sims throne. I mean, you've got Paralives, which is one I've mentioned on here before. Life by You, which has a lot of money and technical ability behind it, but frankly looks a little meh, little like Unity asset thing. I don't know. Looks a little rough, but we'll see how that goes. There's also this weird Korean one that kind of creeps me out for some reason because everything looks slightly too realistic. I forgot what that one's called. Inzoi.
I don't know that one.
It looks like they're using like the Dragon engine. Like honestly, like it looks like Yakuza, but like it kind of creeps me out how realistic the faces and stuff like that are. Then of course there's The Sims 5. So hopefully one of those games will be good out of the 5 that are in production right now. And maybe, I mean, and maybe they just scare EA into actually making a good game. That could also happen. Maybe. So maybe The Sims 5 will be decent. Although I think they've also doubled down on wanting to make The Sims 5 free to play, and just fuck no, like that just EA has proven that they are not responsible stewards of the life sim genre.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
let's not like it's wild to me that this like The Sims is one of the best selling games of all time, like literally, but like. At the same time, there's only been like 1 or 2 games in this genre. You know what I mean? Like there are just so few competitors for this, and it's not even like a license or something. You know what I mean? It's not like there's like sports licensing things you have to go through. I mean, can you imagine any other genre where someone just makes one and then no one else is like trying to get any of that? You know, it's bizarre to me. Like I guess like even city builders. Like yeah, you had SimCity, but you had like a lot of other city builders.
Yeah, and now it's just taking off even more.
Yeah, now there's tons.
Now,
of them
like
now.
more than half of them are in early access still, but they're good. There's a lot of good stuff out there these days.
Yeah, and I think a big part of it is also like now there's like with the cozy game and farming sim Stardew Valley stuff that's kind of exploded. A lot of like corpo people are more okay with throwing money at something that's like casual and or for girls.
Yeah, not flashy and action packed.
Yeah, so like I think it's probably a big part of that is just because like I think frankly we could trace this all back to Stardew Valley, like as every episode is wont to do. You know, I don't think that people would be trying to do this if Stardew Valley didn't kick off that, you know, thing of and also, you know, it's okay for girls to play video games now, apparently. Did you know that?
It is, and it's okay for guys to play games that are considered to be, or would have been in our childhood, considered to be girl games. Yeah, because it's weird. Harvest Moon, I always loved Harvest Moon as a kid, but it really wasn't seen as like a game for guys back in the day. I loved the loops
don't know,
of it.
though.
But I feel like Stardew Valley, to your point, like did kind of break all of that through. And maybe it's the extra combat like system that came into it with the caves, but there was something about it that broke through the rest of it.
Yeah, well, I think also like it just like to your point with Harvest Moon, like the first Harvest Moons, you had to be a guy,
Yeah.
and you had to marry a lady.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think that even though it was probably a game a lot of like non-dudes would get behind, the fact that like it was still very like the goal of this game is to, you know, raise cows, but also, you know, marry
a
woman.
What are you gonna do? Have a female be the lead in a video game?
Yeah.
We weren't there yet.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably some other things we could mention in the news. Oh yeah, that was the other thing. So this is more of a leak, hearsay, rumor, perhaps even, but Creative Assembly, the makers of Total War Warhammer, or Total Warhammer as it is canonically known on this podcast, have said that they haven't said, but it's been leaked that they are working on 3 different games right now. One of which is a licensed Star Wars property, which is interesting. This comes at the same time that Sega, who own Creative Assembly, have downsized many of their European studios and fired not an insignificant number of people at Creative Assembly. Now, Creative Assembly has, at least publicly facing, only really had 2 kind of teams working. You had the team that's been doing Total War Warhammer, and then the ones that are doing the quasi-historical side games, which have not really sold well. Total War Pharaoh and Troy, both of which kind of felt like spin-offs of the main thing, certainly not getting the same attention and not being really as fun games as Total War Warhammer. But for a few years, they were actually working on like a free-to-play extraction shooter AAA bullshit thing called Hyenas, which Sega canceled.
Yeah.
Or at least they canceled it, which is probably for the best, frankly. I mean, I don't know that we need more of those. And while Creative Assembly has gone out of the strategy game bubble to make some pretty good games, especially the amazing Alien Isolation, I'm still just kind of wondering how they're going to manage to, like, if they have less staff, how are they making 3 games right now? You know, like, I mean, I guess you have staff you've pulled off of Hyenas, and if you say you're done with Total War Warhammer and you're done with the historical Total Wars, although I still think they'll probably have DLC for Total Warhammer for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like a lot to put on their kind of play. Like, I don't, what quality game are we going to end up getting?
I mean,
out
it
of
depends
this?
on what phase of development they're into for each one. You know, original concept art people are going to be pulled from one and, like you said, slapped right into the next one, and they'll cycle through that way, and then everyone gets fired at the end anyways, right before it's getting ready to be shipped, except for those who have to stay around for crunch. But yay!
My other concern is, like, I just don't know. I mean, assuming that the idea is like, we're going to take Star Wars and we're gonna take a traditional Total War game and then paint Star Wars on it. I don't know how good that's going to work.
I mean, it could be really good. I don't know. I loved Empire at War, and I'm seeing, like, I could get really down with total Star Wars, as we would call it.
But that's my thing. It's like, the problem with Total War Warhammer, War, and all those things, it's like, it's all very, like, regiments on a field that move forward and hit each other with swords.
So it's going to be like the First Galactic War, or it might even take place during the Old Republic, and it's going to be more like troops on a battlefield.
You know
that way.
full well that it's going to be set during the original 3 movies. There's no way they're going to do anything interesting like that. And then we're just going to have to look at stormtroopers standing in line shooting at not stormtroopers standing in line.
Well, first we'll watch clone troopers stand in lines and fight battle droids.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing.
Fun.
It's like,
I don't know.
I know, but
I want to see an army of Wookiees, like, do their thing. Like, I'd like to see it more that way.
Yeah, no, the problem is, like, I love Total War and I love Star Wars. I just don't think they're necessarily going to work together very well. Like, the RTS has always been the strategy of choice for a Star Wars, you know, something where you can kind of mix tanks and long range things and different. And while they've gotten better at that with Total War, it's still very much like my guys with swords hit your guys with swords, and then also some other things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I mean, like, unless just Jedi versus Jedi, and you just have armies of multicolored lightsabers marching up and down a field. But even then, like, where's the other thing that Total War has to do is have lots of factions. And, like, throughout Star Wars history, you only really have, like, 2 or 3.
I was going to say, you got 3 definitely. Because you've got the Trade Federation, then the Empire, and the Rebels.
Mm-hmm. And then the Empire and the Rebels again, because we did that twice. We didn't think of...
And the Sith Empire, if you go way back, and the High Republic. Like, those people.
Yeah, I just don't think it's a setting that lends itself very well.
Is Star Wars just super binary? Is it?
You mean?
Feels like everything's just so black and white.
Really? You think?
Maybe it's
almost
not
like
very
it lends
nuanced.
itself better to like a battlefield style game where you just have 2 sides running
or
against
like
each other.
Stories for children. Stories that are not overly complicated. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't really have like a lot of intrigue. There's no like Game of Thrones style like positioning and conniving, because like there's just 2 sides. And one of them always has to have the upper hand until the last minute.
I would have appreciated it better if when they were at Jabba's palace and they revealed Han Solo, it was just his head on a pike that had been rotting for like a month. That would have upped the stakes a lot more.
Yeah,
It would have been a
yeah.
great reveal into the third movie.
Do we have anything interesting coming out in the near future?
You mean as far as video games in general? I honestly haven't had a chance to
Yes.
look into this next week. I failed. I'm flying solo. Well, not solo at work, but I'm the only adult there, and I'm training a bunch of new hire children, and it is very taxing on me. So that is the excuse I'll use for being bad at my other job.
Speaking of other job, we now have a Patreon.
Ooh.
Yeah, so if you want to help us continue to do this, you can head on over to our Patreon, which is the patreon.com/the Save State Podcast.
Yes, that will be in the footnotes as well.
Yes. We have some polls up there, so we want to get some feedback on what kind of content y'all would be interested in. We have a plan, not starting immediately, maybe next month, soonish, we'll see, to do a monthly Patreon-only episode.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to kind of maybe use that as a bit of a test bed for some ideas.
Yeah.
So either way, it'd be a slightly different format. We wouldn't just be talking about video games, so...
But still things related to like nerd-ish or pop culture in some way.
I mean, we're middle-aged white guys with nothing else to
That's
do.
right.
So of course we're going to be talking about not pertinent and interesting, useful things. It'll be, comics, movies,
Yeah.
comic book movies.
Speaking of middle-aged white guys forced to talk about nerd things on a podcast, I have to just say to you right now, I am so excited. When we're done with this call, I am going to smoke a big old bowl and listen to Greatest Gen do the first and second episode of Star Trek Enterprise. I have been waiting for
God.
years for this. I cannot wait. I am going to sing that intro so loud.
I do wonder what they're going to do to the theme for
Oh,
Enterprise.
it's going to be so good. God, I can't wait. Anyways, little bit of a, I guess, teaser, maybe? I don't have as much information as I'd like this episode, but later this week we're recording another episode, and I do want to talk about this possible rumored Deadlock game Valve is coming out with. I have feelings.
Oh yeah, with Valve, it's like if it's not there, I don't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
So I need proof.
That's why I want to dig in a little bit more, see exactly where all of this came from, how credible.
Yeah, and also we'll play a video game and talk about that in the next episode.
That is what we like to do.
Yeah.
What have you been playing this week, Arvid?
Oh shit, we forgot to do the end part of this. Yeah, we'll come back to the end, I guess. I've been playing Hades and Minecraft.
It sounds like you've been playing Hades for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm playing Hades. I'm playing some Minecraft with my nephew and my stepfather, as I was last week.
Fun.
Which has been fun. We kind of had a crunch this week because we had 2 eps basically kind of record and cram this game
Doing
and
that
then
a lot lately.
the other game
Yeah.
we were playing next week. So talk a lot about that next time. That game's pretty fun too.
How do you feel about another run through of OG Hades? Is it still hitting the way it used to?
Yeah, I mean mostly. I think I'm a little frustrated by because I did start over and I'm like, man, I missed some of the stuff I had later on. But I don't know. It's still really fun.
Mm-hmm.
My other concern is like playing it on. I've been playing it on Switch, and I don't know if it's just me getting older, but like the Switch handheld mode is like increasingly less comfortable for me if I'm doing quick movements of any kind or rapid movements. Like to me, it's rapid. It like the Switch is just kind of turning into like a visual novel / RPG tactics game machine for me.
Yeah.
But other than that,
I don't know if anyone's done it, but if someone could cut a Duke controller in half and modify it to work on a Nintendo Switch, I think all my problems would be solved.
yeah, exactly. What have you been playing, Mike?
actually a lot of stuff. I've been in a weird funk lately where I'll throw on, like, I'm still playing Helldivers 2. I'm still playing Project Zomboid. We're having a lot of fun. Although we've got a private server running for Project Zomboid, and it's a blast. The farming is becoming a bit of an issue, at least for me. The other players on the server are really leaning into it deeper, which we're getting into winter time for it, so we need to shore up our food supplies. But if you let if you let the crops go too long, they go to seed, which is actually, we're finding, good. It gives you seeds back, and you still get the same number of crops as if you harvested when they were ready to harvest. But the next phase of growth after that is just rot. They just go to rot. So if I want to get on and I see those crops are like ready to be harvested or gone to seed, I have to kind of log out, because I'm not getting the crops is the only way they can get experience for their farming stat. So I don't know. I'm trying to see if there's a mod that could fix that, like, or if we could remove the element of them going to rot after reaching seed level. I think it would be good, but I don't know. Last few days I've been trying to play. It's just always, and I don't want to message people and be like, "Hey, come on and like take care of your farm so I can play this game." So I just decided, well, I'm going to play some other stuff. So I haven't finished it yet, and it's probably going to take a very long time. So you got plenty of time, but I've been playing more Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, and I finally got to the island. Dondoku, I believe is what it's called. And it is so fun. It has, it's more fun than it has a right to be. All of the mini games in this one, and we'll talk about it more when we do that episode, but the Sujimon battles are a lot more fun and interactive in this one. The island is just an insane delight to be on, and the characters that are there are so fun to interact with. They nailed it with the whole day-night cycle and harvesting, and God, such a fun mini game. I can't wait to, I guess, complete it so that I can get back to the actual game. But I don't know if I'm leaving the island until I've finished it. I have the ability to leave right now and come back, but I don't want to yet. I'm enjoying it too much. And then, since we were doing vampire stuff, I tried out Operation Guns, the new Vampire Survivors DLC that dropped. It's part of their adventure pack. It's the newest adventure to go on.
This is the one that's Contra licensed.
Contra, yes, it's Contra licensed, but there's definitely some stuff in there that is more like Contra aesthetic than hard Contra. Yeah. But it's very fun.
I did notice that there is a Castlevania DLC for V Rising, which seems like a very poignant, like, not Castlevania DLC for Vampire Survivors. Yep. Like, it's more like, what? So Konami's licensing stuff, and they decided Contra was the Vampire Survivors thing. Yep. Okay. Sure,
I mean, that does make sense, since it is I guess this term is being used now, reverse bullet hell.
Yeah, I guess.
So it makes sense. The one thing I will say I'm having difficulty with in Operation Guns is that the way you maneuver around the map, the weapons are mostly, you still find some of the old stuff, but the new weapons for this adventure mode tend to be whatever direction you're facing is where they all fire. So you have this constant march forward movement where you have to create these tunnels for yourself instead of massive AoE effects everywhere around the map. One of the most successful runs I did, I only was able to do because I got the Bible and got it upgraded all the way again. Even with these new weapons, everything's just shooting in the same direction, and I'm getting taken from all the other sides around me. So there's something to it.
Yeah, I could see that being beneficial in some specific maps, but overall that seems less fun.
Well, in this one, the maps are so different that you have to cross. There's a lot of choke points. There's a lot of bridges. Everything's segmented away from each other, but it's still the same like blank map that just shows where items and points of interest are, but not terrain details. So you constantly find yourself being like, oh, well, there's an impassable forest around here. I can either go left or right. Oops, the bridge is out on this side. Now I'm just like stuck here trying to fight my way back through. it's fun. It definitely intensifies the combat. It heightens everything more. But I don't know. I gotta unlock more people. I've only unlocked 5 of the characters right now, and I'm hoping that later ones are gonna have weapons that can do more radial damage than what I've currently got.
Yeah. Oh, makes
Yeah.
sense. All right. Well, now we're actually done.
Now we are actually done and winding down. Yes.
Yeah. So, if you like this podcast, you can review it, subscribe, rate up,
Love it.
love it, all that stuff.
Go do the poll on the Patreon. That does not cost anything to interact with.
Good call. Yes, the poll on the Patreon that is up is free. It's accessible to everyone. In the future, there will be content on the Patreon that is not locked behind the Patreon paywall. There will be stuff for non-patrons. So even if you don't want to throw money down, feel free to just check it out when you want to. And if you want to get in contact with us, you can contact us obviously on the Patreon we just mentioned, but also at the Save State Pod cast@gmail.com or at the Save State Pod on Bluesky. And tell your friends about how great we are.
Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell everyone that is within your earshot of you.
Yeah, just tell everyone on the bus. Just stand up right now, walk up and down the bus, and tell everyone.
We really would appreciate it.
Assuming you're not the bus driver.
No. I mean, that's what the new autopilot's for, right? You just click that on. It's those Tesla buses. They're going to be fine.
Yeah, that's a thing. All right. So thanks again for listening. I've been Arvid.
I've probably been Mike, but I don't know. I'm a sleepy boy today. I don't know.
Good night, Mike. Hong Shu. Let's do the intro now then.
Okay. That was it, right? That groan. That's me getting out of my coffin.